Setagaya, a peaceful suburb west of Tokyo, where cherry blossoms bloom in spring, and summer festivals bring families out into the streets. It's the kind of place where nothing truly bad ever happens. The worst thing you might hear is a neighbor's dog barking too late at night, or the teenagers skating too loud in the park behind your house. But one night, that peace was shattered, and a crime unfolded that would leave behind one of the most disturbing, most perplexing, and most unsolved murder mysteries in Japan's modern history. It's a case where the killer didn't just kill. He stayed, he slept, he snacked, he checked email, and then he vanished, leaving behind his own blood, his fingerprints, his clothes, and even his footprints. And yet, over 2 decades later, he has never been found. This is not just a murder. It's a ghost story, a psychological horror, a forensic nightmare. This is the story of the Setagaya family murders. The Miyazawas were an ordinary family. Mikio, the father, was 44 years old. He worked for Interbrand, a respected marketing firm. He wasn't flashy. He didn't party. He commuted to work like everyone else, but there were things about Mikio that stood out. He was a perfectionist. He was firm, especially about rules. He had a reputation for being a little uptight. And lately, he had been complaining a lot, specifically about the skateboarders. The skate park behind his house had become a source of tension. He filed complaints to city officials. He told neighbors he had argued with some of the kids. Some believed he had even gotten into shouting matches. But who takes a noise complaint and turns it into a massacre? Yasuko Miyazawa was 41. She had been a teacher earlier in life. Then she chose to focus on raising her 2 children, Niina, 8 years old, and Rei, just 6. She also tutored children part-time, mostly students with developmental challenges. She was kind, patient, the opposite of Mikio in many ways. The couple lived with their children in the main unit of the house. But right next door, in a connected space, lived Yasuko's mother, Haruko. They were close. So close that Haruko could call or even walk in any time. It was a setup meant to keep the family safe and united. But in the end, it was Haruko who would discover the unimaginable. The day everything changed was December 31st, 2000, New Year's Eve, a time when most families in Japan are preparing a warm meal, laying out futons, getting ready to relax, to reflect, to celebrate the coming of a new year. But that morning, Haruko felt something was wrong. She had tried calling the house. No answer. That in itself wasn't unusual. But something felt off. So she walked through the passage that connected her unit to her daughter's home and opened the door. What she saw inside would never leave her. The house was quiet, too quiet. No morning noise, no kids running around, no television playing, no kitchen activity. She stepped into the living room, and that's where she found him. Mikio, lying at the bottom of the staircase, blood soaked into the floorboards, a frozen expression on his face. His hands battered, defensive wounds. There had been a struggle. She didn't scream, not right away. Somewhere inside her, she already knew. She moved slowly, her eyes darting up the stairs. And what she found next tore her world apart, upstairs. Yasuko lay on the landing, multiple stab wounds. There was blood on the walls, on the doors, on the doorknob. She had tried to escape, Niina was found in the bathroom, brutally stabbed. Investigators would later confirm she was alive during the attack. She had suffered, it was personal. And then, little Ray, still in his bed, tucked in, no stab wounds. He had been suffocated, gently, as if by someone who wanted silence, not violence, a house full of death and stillness. No forced entry, no alarms, no broken windows. Whoever had come in, came in quietly, and left the same way, or so it seemed, because the most chilling detail was yet to come. The killer had stayed. That night, after brutally murdering 4 people, the killer didn't leave. He sat down. He ate ice cream from the freezer. He drank barley tea. He even rummaged through drawers in the kitchen. He used the toilet and didn't flush. He left behind used tissues soaked in blood in the wastebasket. He used the family computer at 1:18 a.m. and again at 10:05 a.m., long after the murders were committed. He slept on the couch, took off his own clothes, folded them, changed into clean ones from inside the house. He was calm. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't afraid. It was like he belonged there. That one detail is what separates the Setagaya case from nearly every other home invasion murder. He made himself at home, and then he left, just walked out. Not a single neighbor saw him. No cameras caught his face. No one even heard a sound. He killed an entire family and disappeared like a ghost. The house was a horror scene, but it was also something else. Something much rarer. It was a living record, a moment in time, frozen, almost perfectly preserved. When police arrived, they weren't just walking into a murder investigation. They were walking into a psychological crime scene. One where every object, every cup, cushion, cabinet, and crease told a story. The killer hadn't just taken lives. He had taken his time. He had touched everything. He sat on their sofa. He took off his own jacket, a Fila brand, and left it behind, neatly folded, almost with care. He rifled through drawers, ate ice cream, left containers on the kitchen counter, drank 4 bottles of barley tea, left them half empty, used bandages from the house to wrap a wound on his hand. Then he sat down and used their computer, opened emails, browsed websites. The family's printer had even been activated that night. It was as if he had moved in. And the strangest thing? He didn't wipe down anything. He didn't try to cover his tracks. Not even once. He left behind fingerprints on the keyboard, blood in the bathroom, used tissues in the trash, half-eaten snacks on the table, his own clothing, and the clothing fibers from the clothes he took from the family's closet, a full DNA profile, and even his intestinal bacteria. He left so much of himself behind, and yet the world couldn't find him. Police immediately launched one of the largest forensic efforts in Japanese history. They collected over 12,500 pieces of evidence. They scanned the walls, vacuumed floors. They even swabbed the air vents. And among the flood of physical data, there were some disturbing and deeply strange discoveries. The killer's shoes, left behind at the entryway, were a specific brand of Fila sneakers. Size 28 centimeters. Only available in South Korea. In fact, that particular model was only sold for a limited time, and only about a dozen pairs were imported into Japan. The sand stuck to the shoes, traced to California and the Negev desert in Israel. How did that sand end up in Tokyo? On this man's shoes? No one could explain it. The clothing fibers on the killer's jacket were consistent with a washing machine used by US military personnel. The brand of cologne he wore was popular with young Korean men at the time. The train ticket stubs in his coat pocket were local. The DNA in his blood, a mix. Paternal ancestry, East Asian, likely Korean, possibly Chinese. Maternal ancestry, Southern European or Mediterranean, Italian, Greek or even French. Blood type, A, height estimate, 170 centimeters, about 5 feet 7 inches. Age, late teens to early 30s. And then came the gut bacteria analysis. Yes, even his feces were tested. It told scientists that this man had a high-fat, meat-heavy diet. Westernized, fast food. Not typical of Japanese citizens at the time. Police weren't just guessing who this man was. They knew him. They knew what he wore, what he ate, how he moved. They even had a psychological profile that said he may have shown sociopathic traits, but with military-level discipline. And yet, no match, no name, no arrest, a phantom. The media dubbed the house of horrors in Setagaya. And what makes this case even more disturbing is that the house still exists. To this day, the building has not been torn down. It hasn't even been remodeled. Everything inside is exactly as it was the day the family died. Mikio's desk is still cluttered with office papers. Yasuko's purse hangs by the stairs. Niina's homework is still in her school bag. Ray's dinosaur toy is frozen mid-fall, exactly where it slipped from his bed. The bloodstains have faded, but they're still there, in the corners of the wood floor, in the creases of the stairs. Officers still return to the house every year, on the anniversary. Some leave flowers, others just stand quietly in the rooms, as if the house might speak, as if the walls might finally give up the name. And every year, that silence remains. So what theories have emerged? There are many, too many. Some are grounded in evidence, others are born from frustration. The first theory is the simplest, that this was a grudge killing. Mikio had filed multiple complaints about the skate park. He had argued with local teens. Some say one of them threatened him. Police interviewed over 200 youths from the area. But none matched the DNA. None owned the shoes. None had a history of violence that fit. Another theory, Yasuko's tutoring. She worked with emotionally troubled students. One of them, or their family, may have held a grudge. Perhaps someone she refused to work with, or someone she had once reported to child services. But again, no link, no DNA match. Then there's the theory that the killer was a foreigner, possibly a military serviceman. The filler shoes, the westernized gut bacteria, the sand from California. The behavior, controlled, methodical, confident. US military bases in Japan house thousands of soldiers. Police discreetly tested some, but jurisdiction was limited. Cooperation was inconsistent. Other theories go darker. That this was a professional hit, and Mikio was not the real target. That someone broke in, and realized too late they had the wrong house. And rather than flee, they eliminated every witness, or that the killer had no connection to the family at all, that he was mentally ill, transient, drifting through the city, looking for a house with lights on, looking for a door left unlocked, looking for silence. And when he found it, he made it permanent. There's a Japanese word, ma. It describes the space between things, the emptiness, the silence that speaks louder than noise. The Miyazawa house is full of ma. Every untouched object, every still room, every unflushed toilet, every faded bloodstain. It's like the killer left behind, a performance, one only the police and family would ever witness. It's not just a house, it's a monument to a mystery, one that resists logic, one that mocks evidence. But why? Why would someone leave so much behind and still get away? To some experts, like those interviewed in the Faceless podcast, it's not just a whodunit. It's a question of why the killer acted the way he did. And that leads us to the psychology. The killer's behavior didn't match what most people expect from a home invader. There was no robbery. He didn't take money, didn't steal jewelry, didn't remove valuables, didn't even cover his face. There was no sign of rage. He was calm, composed. He didn't just kill, he cleaned, he ate, he bandaged his wounds, he organized. He stayed for hours after. Some believe he may have had obsessive-compulsive tendencies. He folded his clothes, stacked trash, arranged items neatly, even wiped his hands on a towel, leaving a bloody print like a signature. Then there's the matter of the bodies. Mikio had clearly fought back. There was violence, panic, broken bones. But the children, Rei, was smothered. Nina, brutally stabbed, but not immediately killed. It was personal, but also deliberate, almost ritualistic. Experts wonder, was he testing something? Was this a man experimenting with emotional detachment? Seeing if he could kill and still feel nothing? That theory has led some to believe the killer may have been a psychopath, possibly even someone studying criminal behavior, a criminology student, a failed detective, a rejected academic, someone who wanted to create a crime, too perfect to solve. Now let's go deeper into the military theory. This has haunted the investigation for years, and for good reason. The Feceless shoes were a South Korean release. The sand in his clothes matched California. The laundry fibers were identical to machines used on US military bases. The gut bacteria showed Western eating habits. What kind of person checks all those boxes? There are 23 US military bases in Japan, some near Tokyo. Most house thousands of foreign troops, Korean, American, mixed heritage, transient, untraceable. The Japanese police requested DNA testing. The US refused. No legal grounds, no suspects, no cooperation. The killer could have been on a base that week, then shipped out the next. Never entered into Japan's DNA system, never flagged, never found. He could be walking through a suburban neighborhood in California right now, listening to music, living a normal life, and no one would ever know. Another theory says this wasn't random, but it wasn't personal either. It was a test. A man trying to see what he could get away with, using a family he didn't know. A perfect target, a quiet neighborhood, few neighbors, vacant houses, an open back gate to the park, no cameras, no dogs, a killer's dream. Maybe it wasn't about hate or revenge. Maybe it was about domination, about proving. He could walk into someone's world, tear it apart, and then walk away untouched, if that was his goal. He succeeded. And yet, with all this data, why haven't police solved it? That's where the failures begin. The crime scene was entered by over 100 officers in the first 24 hours, many without proper gear. Shoes contaminated the floor. DNA was mixed. Objects were moved. The computer logs weren't reviewed until months later. The full analysis of the bandages and clothes took years, and the killer's international profile wasn't released until 2006, a timeline of mistakes. Each one, a nail in the coffin of closure. Even the Setagaya Police Department reportedly felt pressured to keep the case low profile in early years to avoid public panic during the new year. The deeper you look, the more it feels like the case was cursed, not by bad luck, but by silence, stagnation, fear. And then there's the house. It still stands. 2 floors of frozen tragedy. No one lives there. No one rents it. No one touches it. It's become a symbol, not just of a family lost, but of a case unsolved. Inside, everything is exactly where it was. Pillows undisturbed, closets untouched, kitchen drawers still open. Some say the air inside the house feels heavier, like it's holding its breath, waiting. Even the officers who return for the annual remembrance don't stay long. They say it feels like someone's still there, like if you turn your back in the hallway, you'll hear a creak behind you, or feel someone watching from the staircase. The killer may be gone, but his shadow remains. So what do we make of all this? A family, wiped out, no warning, no mercy, no justice. A killer who left behind every trace except his name. A house that stands as a time capsule of horror and a mystery that may never be solved. If he's still alive today, he would be in his 40s or 50s. He could be anywhere. A father, a businessman, a teacher, a soldier, or maybe he's dead. And this case will remain forever unsolved. The Setagaya family murders aren't just unsolved, they are impossible. A perfect blend of horror and logic, of blood and silence, of evidence and emptiness. And every year, the police return, the case files are reopened, the posters are updated, the house remains untouched, still waiting for someone to finally speak. But until then, this story will remain faceless.